very important. It was a very important part of an important role was played by libraries because interest that left movements, workers' movements took in educating the workers. They took an interest in libraries. I don't know. I have said this before in Kannur, but I'll say it again. The first education commissar of the Soviet Union was I'm going old. Anyway, the first deputy commissar is the person I want to say, was Krupskaya. And Nadezhda Krupskaya, who is a great communist and socialist and social reformer, she was also the wife of Lenin, as you know. And Krupskaya's memoirs, Krupskaya's memoirs, if you read her autobiography, she speaks of how she and Lenin went from, during the period of the underground, when they could not live in Russia, they went from city to city, London, Switzerland, and so on. In every city, the first thing that Lenin got to know was the library system. And so he was, in every city, he was familiar with the library system. And he was deeply influenced mainly by different libraries, British Library. He was deeply influenced by the Swiss system of libraries because they lived in an isolated village. And they would get books delivered to their house. If he ordered it today, next day he'd get the book. So it's a very interesting. The other thing was he was very impressed with the US system of libraries because he wanted a system where every person had a library within 10 minutes from their house. That was the objective. I can say that in Kannur, that we have a constituency with one library in every ward for the first time. So that's more or less what Lenin envisaged. But we have the first constituency, and symbolically important that it is the chief minister's constituency also, that where this ideal has been achieved. Not at a very short distance from your house, you have a library. And that library is not only. See, Lenin's also concerned that the library would not only be a library, it will also be a public space. This has happened in some capitalist countries also, in certain places. I'll come to that later. But this is some of the background. Krishna Kumar had mentioned some aspects of the library. I come from the planning board, so translation avashyam veno avashyam venda avashyam nu varum avashanam veno venda okay avashyam thank you. But so next point is I'd like to make some points on what I and my colleagues in the planning board think should be some of the steps ahead for Kerala in the field of library. Now, as you know, we are in a financial crisis. The centre has imposed a financial crisis on us. We don't have a huge amount to spend. But nevertheless, I think there are some things we can do. We can transform our library system. The first is all library activists, we must get together. My recommendation to the Library Council in Kerala is that I'll tell you why also, we must have a common software for cataloguing, borrowing, for all library services. We must have a common software for every public library, whether it comes under the panchayat or whether it comes under the district or under the state. Every public library must have one common software. This is, see, it is an achievable objective. It's not easy. It's somewhat complex because there are differences in the need of local libraries, large district libraries, and so on. But it is achievable. The skills that are available in Kerala, with skills that are available in Kerala today, we can have common software. In some cases, it's been achieved in India. For instance, there's a social science, there's a common, for most social science research institutions in India today, there is a single catalog. It is a single catalog called the Social Science Union Catalog. We must have one single software, and we'll see how to merge the catalogs. But we must have one single software which makes the books in our public libraries available. This is something which was available to, say, students in Europe from the late 70s and 80s. If I cannot get a book in my library, I can find out which library in Europe has that book, or how many libraries in Europe, in the whole of Europe. I did my first postdoc in Europe in the 80s. I was able to. I was in Finland. I could get a book. I could search from my desk the catalogs of any library in the whole continent. That is quite easy for us to achieve in Kerala. So one is a software. The second is, on a limited scale, we have to test this. But certainly within a district, free, efficient system of interlibrary loans. See, now our MP Dr. Shivadas was telling me, but a public library, during either 1,000 books, 1,000 books minimum 1,000 books. So now I may have 1,000 books on my shelf, but I can have 10,000 books on my catalogue. Because I'll have my library shelf may have only 1,000 books, but if the catalogue, if I have interlibrary loans with the whole district, then I have 200,000 books in my catalogue, but 1,000 books on my shelf. And if I am living in Aralam and I've got only 1,000 books, I can borrow from Talasheri from the Talasheri library through a system of interlibrary loans. It's easy to say. It's very complex to work out, but we can do it. This system of interlibrary loans is possible. I think it's possible in Kerala. I don't think it will take much time. The third thing is, we must learn on how to share digital books. Most libraries now have facilities not only for getting physical books, but also getting digital books with digital readers. How do we achieve that? We should learn from best practices internationally. This is not very expensive. A simple digital reader is not very expensive. So I would like Kannur to become the model for all these. I'm saying this because I think this district can become a model for all of them. Some we must learn from experiences in that. The last thing I want to say in response to we'll have a discussion after this. The last thing I want to say is about public spaces that came up in Professor Sini's presentation. It came up to a certain extent in Vinay Kumar's statement, paper, but it came up most in the paper of Vimal Raj, who had shown us some pictures of libraries. This is extremely important. The idea of library spaces. How do we use library spaces? One thing I noticed was that Vimal Raj and others, I'd ask you to, if you get the chance, Google Helsinki Central Public Library, OODI, that's the name of the library. And look at the images. After you go to Google All and then click on Google Images. And you'll see the internal spaces. See, that building has the equivalent of playgrounds for children. It has the equivalent of staircase. I don't know about steps, sitting on steps. There's one whole section is just steps for young people and children. But the steps are not narrow steps. Each step is about this broad. So you can sit. In the same building, you have seminar room. You have digital libraries for graphic development. You have places for playing board games like Scrabble and all that. Then you have places to eat, where you can eat together. Places for children to play and to read. So the organization of library space is now one of the main, it's a very important specialized field of library development in different parts of the world. Every library does not have to be big. You can have small library spaces and big library spaces, but this is something which is happening all over the world. The design of library space. The Alexandria Library, the famous library in Alexandria in Egypt, is another example. You may be interested. I just read recently that the new library coming in Dubai, which is a very important new breakthrough in using library space. So I'm only saying this in response to the discussion. It is good that we think about library space because library infrastructure, library architecture, it's very important as libraries that if we are to encourage the reading habit in modern times, library space must be well organized. We must have digital resources, both in terms of reading and in terms of cataloging. We should not think of digitalization as an obstacle to the reading habit. For instance, now I read fiction digitally, I read non-fiction in the hard copy. Different people have different, some people prefer to read fiction still in books, some people prefer to read it digitally, and so on. So we should not see digitization as an enemy of the reading habit. We should see digitization, we should see how we can use digitization to encourage the reading habit. That's my, so lastly, I'd like to say that we should send people from our library movement to different parts of India, different parts of the world. Let's learn. Let's learn about what's happening in library development all over the world. Let's bring it back to Kerala. And I think that, see, Kerala has been, of course, in terms of school education, health, a beacon to other countries. It has been in terms of labor rights, the development of labor rights. Even today, in an era, international era, when labor rights are declining in different parts of the world, Kerala has not only defended labor rights, but we have tried to extend labor rights. Similarly, in a time when people are paying less attention to libraries, I think we can show that libraries can be a mass movement even in these days. In fact, we can use modern science, modern technology to set an example, to bring more and more people into the library movement. It's very important because we can use modern facilities to bring the most remote village. We have done it by constructing a library of 1,000 books. But we can use that library as an instrument of social inclusion through modern digital methods. This is broadly, these are the points I'd like to make. Thank you, it's been a very interesting session. Unfortunately, some of our participants could not come, and I believe that Comrade Baby will come after lunch. But this is open now. All of these points are open to discussion now. We have so we have half an hour, 25 minutes. If you are going to make comments or questions, please make them brief. Please come, introduce yourselves. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.